Hi, it's Von Hertzog. I'd like to welcome you back to the Social Club, my analog digital hybrid studio. Now, you all know I'm a giant fan of the Dangerous Convert 80 Plus. It is my go-to analog to digital converter here at the Social Club. But you can imagine my surprise when I saw that Dangerous recently released a plug-in version of this. Plug-in? Plug-in? Yes, a plug-in version of a piece of hardware. That's nothing new. There's emulations of hardware all the time in plug-in form. But what's different about this one is that it's an analog to digital converter that they're cloning. And you might be saying, okay, why is that weird? Well, if you're using a plugin, your audio is already digital. You're using digital audio to feed the plugin. So what are you really capturing from analog then? You're not. Here, you are using the same analog processes in the digital realm. And so they're gonna sound a little bit different. They're not gonna be quite identical, but I am shocked at how close this unit came to reproducing the real thing. And I have the real unit here in my rack, and I do A to B comparisons to it. And I'm gonna show you with different gain levels, with the clip guard engaged, with the emphasis, with the transformers. I'm gonna run down all these different things, and I already have prints done to show you. There's a bunch of different things that make this thing unique. And so by translating that into the plug-in world, you're now able to take advantage of some of these analog-only pieces like the Hammond transformers, and you're able to use this and its gain fracturing above zero to musically have the music break apart in clip in a musical saturating way, something that your ear likes. Can this plugin genuinely replicate this amazing piece of hardware? We're gonna find out. So let's switch over, let's go into the DAW, let's go into the session, and let's look at the individual tracks and see how closely they compare. All right, here we are in the DAW. I have Nuendo open and I have all of these different prints set up so that we can compare them. We're going to compare the plugin to the hardware. We're going to check some null tests to see how closely they null. And we're going to form some opinions on how we feel this thing sounds compared to the hardware. So let's dig in. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help the channel out a lot. You know, give me a little boost. Hype this video up a little. Tell your friends. Starting off here, we have a track called Scrapple from Tony Trov, Philadelphia HOAGIEWAVE artist. Fantastic music. If you haven't heard of Tony, check his music out. Let's listen to it quickly on its own. So this is a lo-fi track by Tony Trov. I took the mix directly out of the SSL and recorded it into the DAW from the Convert 80 Plus with no transformer, no emphasis, as clean as I could record it in. And that's going to be the print that we're using as the master file for the plugin to run out to the hardware. That's what we're using. So we have it here. You can hear it. It's good stuff, right? Nice lo-fi track, very chill. I like it a lot. All right, so here it is. You can see it's 155 euros right now, which isn't a terrible price for a plugin. Maybe it'll go on sale, but let's look at the key features here. You have the Transformer 2. Hammond transformers add weight, depth, and authentic analog richness. I love the sound of the Hammond transformers inside the hardware, and I'm sure these are going to be very similar. Another feature is gain fracturing, pushing past 0 dBFS with controlled musical digital clipping. I do this all the time on the hardware unit, but I'm curious to see how well the software can do in replicating that clipping, because I've become very accustomed to it. I know the sound, I know how hard to push it, and I'm curious if the plugin even gets close to it. So we'll find out. Emphasis, analog style EQ and compression for warmth, presence, and musical harmonic color. I love the emphasis knob. You may already know, I typically work with the transformers on and the emphasis knob at high noon. That is the sound of my console that I push into. Clip guard, drive levels hard without triggering false digital clipping alerts. This thing is amazing in the analog realm. I imagine it's not that hard to do it in the digital world, but we're going to find out. These four things here: custom metering, dual source input, auto sample rate, calibration. That's not really sound quality stuff. It's more or less just how flexible the unit is to be used with different input sources and sample rates, etc. And then you have word clock. Bypass the word clock to introduce musical micro jitter as a creative texture. So this is saying bypass word clock to introduce musical micro jitter. So we're going to test this out. And I think this is the first thing we're going to test. So let's go look at how this word clock sounds. I'm going to play the original. Here's the plug-in with the word clock button on. And here it is with the word clock button off. So how different are these two? Well, let's check. If I take the clean with the word clock on and we invert the phase, okay, that's pretty similar. So it doesn't exactly null, but it's very close. It's right there, right? Now let's check when we turn the word clock button off. Okay, now we're getting somewhere interesting. This is what they were saying: bypass the word clock to introduce musical micro jitter. So I guess that's what they're calling this. To me, it sounds almost like a sweeping, right? Like, you can see what's, oh, you see how it's filtering through here? So whatever that word clock musical micro jitter is doing is, it seems to be doing some sort of frequency sweeping across the spectrum. Huh. So now when I compare the plug-in output with the word clock on versus with the word clock off, you can hear how it's doing this frequency sweep. I don't know. I don't know what that is. It's an interesting texture, and I understand that it will change the sound of the record. I'm not sure how much I like it or don't. Might have to spend some more time with it, but there's something going on there that's a little hinky. So now what I did was I output it through the hardware with the word clock on. So if we go plug in word clock on and hardware word clock on, how close are they? Well, that's definitely not a null, so the hardware is going to sound different. I don't know if I can hear that sweeping as much. I think it's still there, though. Now here's the hardware. This is the hardware playing with the dangerous word clock. So just straight hardware, no plugins, running the actual dangerous hardware word clock. So do we get that same kind of little sweep thing going? We do, but it seems to be a little less pronounced. You can't tell how obvious it is. But something's still happening there. Okay. So that's all well and good. The clocking thing, hardware versus software, it's different. And I'm not precisely sure what they're going for there, but it's doing something. So let's turn off the clocking ones and let's just get to the prints coming in now. So We're going to look at this. Here's how I have it organized. I did the prints in levels of hotness, so I compared clean, going in very clean, with no transformer on. Compare the hardware and the plugin. Then we have the hardware and the plugin with the transformer on, but the emphasis at 0. Then we have the hardware versus the plugin where the transformer's on, the emphasis is at 50. And then we have hardware versus the plugin where the emphasis is at 100 with the transformer on. And all of that is still coming in clean. There's no clip guard or anything. This isn't clipping the converter at any point on these. That's what these are for. These down here are for clipping the converter. So what I started doing here is going in with no transformer clipped, with a transformer but no emphasis clipped, with the transformer and 50% emphasis clipped, and with the transformer on and 100% emphasis flipped. So if you want, you can download this. I'm going to have a big zip file that's going to have all of these different prints in it, and you can download them and compare them for yourself to see if you can tell the difference and which you prefer. And then you can come and leave me a comment to tell me which you like. Let's dig into it. We're going to start here just listening to the hardware versus the plugin with no transformers on, no emphasis, just straight up hardware versus software. So here's the hardware playback. Here's the plugin. Very similar sound. Like if I start pushing this fast, can you even tell? Doesn't even sound like it's changing. So very close, but will it null? No. So it's not a direct null. All right, so now, what if we just turn the transformer on? Let's go hardware to hardware, and we're going to turn the transformer on. A little different. Let's check it against this now. It doesn't null, but again, it's very, very close. Let's go to emphasis 50 on the hardware versus plug-in. Not quite a null. But you can hear how the kick drum is starting to affect that transformer a bit and get a little bit of saturation on it. Let's listen to the hardware now with the emphasis cranked all the way up to 100. Here's the hardware. Plug in. All right. Hardware sounding good, coming in clean, nothing clipping, right? We're staying under. Very similar. check the null. Now you can hear. They're not nulling the same because it's not, the transformers aren't handling it the same. Once you start pushing this, you can hear that saturation kick in. And it is not equal. But when you compare A to B, you know, plug in hardware, plug in hardware, plug in hardware. Very similar, guys. Guys, come on. We're talking very similar sounds here. All right. That's all well and good. We know this thing can sound amazing when it's clean. It sounds very clean. But what about when we start pushing it? So the first thing I want to do here, we're going to listen to the hardware clipped, but no transformer, no emphasis, none of the extra stuff, just clipping the converter as is with clip guard on. Let's listen. Hardware. Plug in. And now we'll check the null again. All right, so it's gain fracturing differently. Because let's face it, this would null if they gain fractured the same. And you can hear it. It's not the same. All right. Sounding good. Still sounding good. Interesting. So I think we can agree that the low end and the gain fracturing is really where things are kind of different. The transformer's not exactly the same, and the gain fracturing definitely sounds like it hits a little differently, and that's why they're not canceling each other out in the null test. So let's run this now, hardware, with the emphasis at 0, but the transformer on. Plug-in version. You guys can tell, this is very similar here. Yeah, the clipping's a little different. One of the things about this song is it is lo-fi by nature, and things aren't panned directly center. So the drums are a hair left, the bass is a hair right, and that's by design in the actual song. So when I listen back here, yeah, I'm hearing a bit more distortion in that left during the null test because that's the channel that's clipping harder. All right, let's go to the hardware with the transformer on and the emphasis at 50% clipped. My mixes and masters tend to live in this general vicinity. So let's take a listen. Hardware, plug in. Loving the bass tone on that. So nice and clean. All right, at this point, you know what to expect, right? So I would say the gain fracturing is probably the part where it is the most different from the hardware, but not that it sounds drastically different when you're not doing the null test. Like, the null test genuinely exemplifies the only differences. And if I'm just A being like this, I don't know I can tell that difference. They sound pretty close, man. All right, last test here. We got the big guy, right? When we had this thing cranked all the way, the transformer's on, the emphasis knob turned all the way up to 100, this is what it sounds like. This is the hardware. Let's listen to the plug-in now. Guys, they're very similar. And the harder you drive it, the more you notice the differences. All right, they're very similar. If I were to pick apart the difference between the two here, here's what I would say. I think that the hardware has a bit more front to back depth to it than the plug-in, but by a hair and when pushed to the max of what you could use it for. The low end sounds a little smoother on the hardware to me. It sounds less even on the plug-in. And keep in mind, this is with no other effects applied. This is literally just comparing the hardware prints to the software prints. So they're very, very close. Here's what I'll say. I think the differences are very close. However, the harder you push the unit, the more the differences become clear. And for me personally, the hardware still has that little extra polish to it that the plugin doesn't. And would I want this plugin? Yes, I'm probably going to end up buying this. I have it on demo right now. There's a 30-day demo. You can go to the website, try it out, download it for free. You should go download this and try it for 30 days for yourself. I'm almost positive I'm going to end up buying this thing just because I know how the hardware sounds. I know how close this software sounds. And the only time you really start getting into the differences is when you start hitting it hard and really pushing it. And if I understand that, I know how to use it. I can use it in the box to my advantage. And let's face it, I only have one of these hardware units. I could put this on every channel if I wanted. I'm not gonna, because that's not the right use case for it. It's not a channel strip. However, if you have a drum bus or something that you're looking to maybe clip and instead of limit, give this thing a go. It is well worth it when it comes to that. I do want to show you something else here. Okay, so I have Plugin Doctor open now, and what I want to show you is how the transformer and the emphasis knob can affect the frequency response on your audio. So, looking at the plugin here, here's what we're going to do. We're going to first take a look at where it lands. It essentially, right here, from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz is the human hearing range. So anything down here is pointless. You can tell it gets a little uneven down here. But, you know, 1/10 of a decibel. We're talking imperceptible amounts. But this is the frequency spectrum. Just running flat, clean. Word clock doesn't seem to change anything. So let's turn on the transformer. All right, you can see the difference here. It does start that low roll off a little bit. You're down a decibel at 20 hertz, which is fine. And you have a boost up here, you know, at about 1.5 decibels at 20 hertz. So you're down a dB, you're up 1.5 dB, and across the middle, you are pretty flat. So if we're now to incorporate the hardware, This is the flat hardware response. Very flat across the spectrum here. And that's going out of the Orion, through the SSL console, and back into the Convert 80 Plus. So when I turn the transformer on, let's see how close it is. That's very close. You can see the 60 Hertz alternation there for the AC current. It appears, I mean, all right, if we're going to get down to splitting hairs, there's maybe 0.2 less dB at 20 kilohertz, and maybe, yeah, probably 0.2 dB less at 100 hertz, but it's pretty flat across the range. What happens now when we start turning this knob up? Let's say we get this thing up to 50. All right, so with the knob at 50 on the software, that's where we're at. So now if I take the hardware knob and turn it to high noon, all right, it's a little under. So if we are looking at where this should be, the hardware unit is a little bit under. Let's see, to get it closer to even, you have to go to about 2 o'clock on the clock dial. Now, you'll notice that while this part is very similar, there's a little less high end on the hardware, and there's definitely more low end here. And I think that's why I was detecting the transformer on the hardware as warmer. I think I was picking up like this decibel or half decibel of it's about a half decibel of range here at 100 hertz. You know, I'd say maybe like 50 to 200. That 50 to 200 range, there's a little bit more heft in the analog version. And if we crank this thing all the way up, can't turn it any higher. Hardware do the same. Almost the same, but not quite. I mean, let's be real. These are not the same curve. I think it just amplifies the differences. So again, if I start pulling this back down to 0, pull it back down to 0, and then let's say I put this at 9 o'clock, right? That's a very low thing. And I go to 9 o'clock here, and that barely registers a change. Like this first part of the dial here does very little. Looks like the heavy lifting is done further up the dial. Because yeah, that's very minute at the bottom, which I guess is great if you're trying to dial in that very small lift. But if I put this at 11, and I put this at noon, so this is interesting. I go to 10 o'clock here, right? And I go to 10 o'clock here, and there's more of a boost from the analog. I go to 11, it looks like 10 and 11 line up. So 10 on the analog is 11 on the plug-in. I go to noon, and now this is getting a much bigger push the further you go up the dial here, as where the analog feels a bit more even. So 1 o'clock on the plug-in is 3 o'clock on the hardware. And then when you crank this thing all the way, and I crank this all the way, I run out of steam on the hardware compared to the analog. So let's see at what point. I would say that's, you know, what's it, 88? So 88 on the plug-in is about 100% on the hardware. I don't know, but this is why I opened Plug-in Doctor, so you could see these changes and these differences, right? They are not the same. So what's my verdict on this plugin? I like it. I think I'm gonna buy it for myself. If I can find it on sale, I'm definitely gonna grab it. 155 euros is a little rich for my blood for a plugin, especially for something that I already have in hardware. But I do love how nicely it works. And I'd like to have that option to spread across channels in a session and use it where it's applicable. Do I recommend you go out and pick this plugin up? I'm gonna tell you to demo it. Demo it for yourself and see if it does enough of what you need it to do to justify the price tag. I can't tell you because I don't know what your usage is gonna be out of it, but For me, this is going to be something I'm going to use in place of a limiter. And again, just having the hardware unit, I know what this thing does well, I know how to use it, and I kind of look forward to taking advantage of it in plugin form. I think it's going to be quite advantageous. I'm going to say, go grab this, demo it. You get a full month, 30 days to put this thing through its paces, figure out if you like it or not, and then decide to buy it or uninstall it. It's up to you. I do love the dangerous sound quality that I've come accustomed to over the years. You know, a lot of people think I have a 2-bus plus. I don't. I have an SSL Sigma, but I use the dangerous for the analog to digital conversion because it's my favorite converter. Do with that what you will. I think it's a worthwhile thing. I think you should go pick it up. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think it's a very good plugin. I think it does an admirable job of emulating the hardware. That is no small feat to emulate that box. And it does a very good job at it. So I like this plug. I don't think it's snake oil. I think it does what it says it will. It is very similar to the hardware. And if you know how to use the hardware, you'll know how to use the plugin. So get out there, get some use out of it, put it through its paces. And if you're not in the analog world, but you'd like to take advantage of some of that analog mojo, this might be the plugin that helps get you in that game. You know what I mean? Before I go, a couple quick things. My band, Majestic Phoenix, dropped our EP, Manifest. My band, VHXRR, dropped our EP at the end of November. Both of those are out now. You can go out and listen to them. Hope you enjoy. And until next time, this has been Von Hertzog from the Social Club.